What's happening, everyone? My name is Jake. I make lifestyle videos and vlogs normally, but today I'm starting a new series titled Real Chats with Jake. Today's topic is blackout racism. I'm interviewing Brandon Goode. He is an author and a Barnes& Noble teen must-read author as well. He is releasing a new book, and I will put all of the information in the description below. If this is something that you are interested in, please hit the subscribe button so you hear all of the interviews that I'm about to publish on YouTube, as well as follow me and follow the people that I'm interviewing on social media. All of that will be in the description below. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Hello everyone, I want to introduce you to my friend Brandon Goode. He is a best-selling author, and Barnes & Noble recognized him as a teen must-read recognition author as well.
It's a hard word. I know, it's a hard word.
I'm like looking at it, I'm like, I can't even read my chicken scratch over here. But that's awesome. And you are actually working on your sophomore project. Actually, it's done, right? Like it's
my sophomore baby is out in the world, was released last Sunday before the world basically came to an end.
Right.
And so yeah, my sophomore book is out right now. Unorthodox Remedies is available on Amazon and Kindle via Amazon. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. So
that's awesome. I actually got the privilege of reading it, and it is, I think, you obviously, none of us really knew that this year was going to, what we were talking about earlier, be Jumanji. But I think it really is a very powerful message, especially right now with everything going on. So I will put the link to the Amazon link in my description below. So everyone can check that out and support you, because I think it's an awesome, awesome book. And I'm just so proud of you. And I'm so thankful that you're coming on to do this with me. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for allowing me this opportunity. And I mean, thank you for reading the book as well. It's writing a book of poetry is very different from writing like a fantasy novel or anything, but I felt being vulnerable was what was best for this project. And definitely right now, I think people could learn a lot from the project and heal a lot with the project. Unorthodox Remedies is about love, which we all go through. It's about the fallout and destruction of love, which we've all gone through, and then it's the healing after. And I think right now what we all need is some healing, and so the poetry in there kind of touches on all those emotions that we can call out, but I definitely think it teaches us to learn how to heal through all of the bad stuff. So yeah,
I love that so much.
Thank you.
So for everyone that is, I mean, clicking on the title, you already know what this video is mainly about, but just to kind of sum things up, I really wanted to start using, I started this channel at the beginning of the pandemic. And in the first video, I said I wanted to use this platform as a platform of growth and change. And we didn't know that things were going to go this way, but you know what? We take what we get and we work with that. And so this whole project is now going to be a series of, conversations. I don't want to call it a town hall, but more of a just, an open conversation. Like we're sitting at a coffee shop, just kind of being human beings and discussing important matters without it being political or, I mean, obviously politics and emotions and things like that will come into play, but just, two human beings sitting down and talking about what's going on in the world. So that's something that you're cool with?
Yeah, this is my tea. I always have tea when I do anything, because in life tea keeps me peaceful and it's zen.
So we're gonna cheers to that.
Cheers. But I think this is definitely awesome. And again, thank you for having me, because I think these conversations are what we need right now. And I think that people really need honest dialogue. And I think sometimes a lot of it gets mixed up with the media. I think it gets mixed up on social media, but I also think a lot of things get misconstrued when you're not having those open and honest conversations.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that have reached out to me saying, I want to go out, I want to protest, I want to be on the streets, but I can't. There's these limitations. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic still. So if you have, a high risk factor, it's probably not the smartest health decision for you. However, people are putting that aside, which I think is great. But I urge people, there's a million ways that you can help, that you can join this fight, that you can join this cause. And ultimately it is starting with conversation. So with that, I want to ask you the very first question that I sent you before, but what does racism mean to you? Like, how do you define racism?
When it comes to racism, and I think I want people to really get this point that I'm about to say. When I think of racism, I don't think of political affiliation. I don't think of male or female. I don't care what color you are. Racism and prejudice kind of go hand in hand with each other, and it can plague anyone in any type of demographic. What I mean by that is racism is seen and unseen. So we have systemic racism, we have actual physical racism where people are doing things towards a specific person or group because of the color of their skin. So racism isn't just something that's surface level where you're registered a Democrat, you're not racist. If you're registered a Republican, you're racist. Absolutely not. Anyone can be racist, and it has to deal with the foundations of which we have been raised to know and the culture that we're brought up in. But it's also ultimately up to that person, if you're learning that that culture is not okay, to break away and learn to do better. So racism is just like any other morals that we have, opening the door, saying hello, how are you? Those common pleasantries that you and I may have, racism is the equivalent of that on the other side of the spectrum. So I see someone that I don't like because of their skin color, I'm gonna be rude. If I'm serving them, you're gonna have horrible service tonight. If I'm your boss, you have a lower pay grade. So racism is present in a lot of different factors and factions that people are not aware of. It's just not a black and white issue. It should be everyone versus racism issue.
I'm not smiling because I'm smiling. I literally have chills right now. Like that,
Yeah.
I love this. Yeah, I agree completely, and I it's frustrating because I was having a conversation last night, and racism is a learned thing. And going off of your point, that it's how we are raised,
Yep.
And if it wasn't the color of your skin, it would be discrimination against. I mean, there is discrimination against your social
Mhm.
economic status, your
Yep.
your religion, your
Yep.
sexual orientation.
Uh-huh.
Your answer to that question, it really, I think, is what a lot of people need to hear right now, and that is the root of what we are fighting for. It's not a black
Yeah.
and white issue; it's a racism, human rights issue. So,
Absolutely. And that's the thing, you said it right. Human. We're human first. And this plagues all of us. And so that's why what I'm seeing in certain conversations that are being had are interesting, because I think people view it as my party comes first and then I'm human. But it should be I'm a human first, because when we were born, we had no affiliation. We didn't have our friends. We weren't in social circles. We had no political or socioeconomical status, yet our families did. But coming into the world, we were human first. So what makes you think that you should be able to do that before you're human?
right, absolutely, I agree 100%. I love that. All right, so the next question I want to ask you, and
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I've learned, and let me go on a little tangent here. Um, I was a part of a group, or I am a part of a group on Facebook, and when this happened, I reached out and I made a public post, and I said any POC that needs help or needs uh, anything, an ear or someone to talk to, like, please reach out to me. I'm here to help. I don't really know where to start, but I'm here to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quickly like it came back with a lot of positive response, but there was a couple people that were like, stop using the term POC,
Yes.
and address this as black, change
Yep.
to black.
Yep.
um, and as a white man growing up, I was always told or taught to use the term African American. That was the term that I was taught in school, or by
Uh-huh.
my family. And so now, with all of this happening, I think there are a lot of people, especially white people, that are confused, that don't know what to say. They don't want to, they're in their heart, they don't want to be offensive, but that ends up becoming silence because they're afraid to say something. And, it kind of, when I heard that, when I saw, like, stop using that term, that's inherently racist by diminishing, taking away from this movement as Black Lives Matter and a black issue, and not calling it out as that. You are including, Asians, Hispanics, other people that are not white, and this is
Right.
primarily for a black movement
Yeah.
at the heart of it.
Yep.
And so it took a while. It took a few minutes for me to actually digest that and be like, I'm coming from a good place. I don't want to be offensive, but that,
Yeah.
can be seen as racism. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity, and I'm glad that I had that experience because I can learn from it, right? So
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, what is the correct term in your eyes for someone of my background and the way that I was raised?
Me personally, I'm fine with Black. I think that when we get into being politically correct, we refer to African American and Caucasian. You know, like I think we try to revert to the political correct terms because we don't want to offend. But I always tell people, just like when it comes to how someone identifies, ask them what they want to be referred as, because there are some Black people who want to be referred to as African American, and I can't take that away from them. But a lot of us, and I can only speak for myself primarily, I don't mind if you say Black because it lets me know that you're comfortable saying Black. I feel like some people are not comfortable saying Black. And then I'm like, well, why are you not comfortable? You know, I think that when we make comments, and I'm thankful to those people who reached out to you to say, hey, direct it as Black, because when we put out blanket statements, right, of POC, it's like you're talking about everybody and their mama that is a person of color. And a lot of them are not dealing with the Black issue right now. So therefore, that point wouldn't really resonate with the Black community because they're gonna be like, hey, this is us. Like, just like how we're saying Black Lives Matter, you're glazing over it with saying POC. Right. And those also too, and I know you're not like this, but there are those people who are wanting to seem like they're for the cause. So a lot of their statements are POC this and POC that. But I mean, call it what it is, because whenever there's rape in the world, we call it rape. Whenever there's assault on someone, it's assault. So don't be afraid to use the word, because if you want your voice to actually be heard for a matter that's going on, use the proper terminology. So for me, I don't mind Black at all.
And you as an artist and an author, you know, words have a very, very heavy weight to them.
Yep.
So when we take those away, it's the same thing as all lives matter versus Black lives matter. Not yeah.
But talk about that for a second. Can we just like,
yeah.
Okay, so this whole all lives matters thing, I mean, listen, all lives do matter, and I believe that 100% of my heart. Being a Black gay man who is also a Christian, I was brought up in the church, and I know that God made us all to be equal. Nowhere in the Bible did he say whites were better than Blacks. Nowhere did he say you were better than me. If we were all made from the same blood, right? So a lot of these all lives matter people are predominantly of faith. So I posted something a couple of days ago with scriptures, because if I'm gonna have these conversations, understand I have receipts to come with me, because I'm not gonna have a dialogue without factual information. And I pulled out scripture after scripture highlighting how we were all made in God's image. And that right there gets to me, because we were all made in his image, right? So, and we are all made in his image, and you believe that by faith, that means none of us are better than the other, because if so, wouldn't that make you better than God? If you're better than one of his other creations that's in his image. So what was funny about it to me was none of those all lives matter people were commenting on that post, right? Because they knew they could not comment back. However, on every other post, I'm getting all lives matter, all lives matter, all lives matter. And I think back to like slavery, when slaves were going through the Underground Railroad, right? And they were getting to abolitionists who were helping them get to freedom. Could you imagine if they showed up and they're like, hey, like we were told you were gonna get us to freedom. And the abolitionist was like, no, only white lives are gonna be going to freedom and everybody else is going to freedom, when no one else needed to go to freedom. It was the Black people. So when you're saying all lives matter, it will always take away from the cause. Like, I'm not going to show up to your grandma's funeral and say, my uncle died too. I'm not showing up to a cancer rally for breast cancer being like, well, pancreatic cancer is bad too. What about that? Like, what do I look like doing that? I look very ignorant. So all those all lives matter comments are very ignorant, because just 3 weeks ago, when we tipped over 100,000 deaths, no one was screaming all lives matter then, right? When those people were protesting up in those other states to reopen the country without a mask, by the way,
and guns,
police,
and guns,
by the way, with guns. No, all lives were mattering then. And then when y'all want to go down to Applebee's and Great Clips, y'all were not concerned about the elderly community because they were too old and they were going to suffer from COVID anyway. So all lives matter, question mark? I don't think so. I think this is a narrative that pops up every single time to diminish the Black true experience, or any other, honestly, racist experience, but it's very focused on the Black experience, because Black Lives Matter has a lot of momentum and team behind it, you know? And so it frustrates me, because then out of that came the Blue Lives Matter, which I love. Great cops, by the way. There are good cops out there, and I know that they do good work. However, we understand that being a cop is a hard job. Absolutely. But a cop can take off their uniform. A Black person cannot. And when you go for any type of job interview or anything, you know the role responsibilities, you know the expectations. Heck, they go through boot camp and training about de-escalation. So I do understand all of that, but understand they signed on for that job. Black people did not sign on to be Black. Okay. Right. So when people are like Blue Lives Matter, I'm like, well, what about the paramedics? Do we have a Red Lives Matter? What about the firefighters down the street? Do we have a White and Red Lives Matter? Like, absolutely not, because these comments are just there to diminish what the true movement is about and to deflect it to make it seem like Black people and people behind the cause of Black Lives Matter are against cops and are against everybody else, when no one said only Black Lives Matter. All they said were Black Lives Matter. So
I think that is a great explanation of that, because the Black Lives Matter started, correct me if I'm wrong, 2012-ish?
It was after Trayvon, so I think it was 2013. 2012 or 2013 is around the time, yes.
So I was in high school at the time, and I was in the closet, growing up in a predominantly white community, of middle class privilege. And I, you know, when that happened, I was a very firm believer, because I was raised, you know, religious, and I was like, oh no, all lives matter, because that's what I felt as, like, exactly what you were saying. You know, we all, right, especially religious people, are like, we want everyone to be created equal, and that's the way, right, that's the way that the Bible teaches us, right? But I also had this inside feeling of, my life matters too. I'm a minority. I worry about being discriminated against, you know? And so I think that internal dialogue blinded me from seeing what the movement was, blinded me from, you know, seeing, no, this is what the point of this message is, you know? It's all vernacular, right? I thinking that is a form of racism, right? Me saying all lives matter is a form of racism. I don't ever want anyone to think that I'm racist, or I never want to think that about myself. But looking back on that, it's like, when we take a moment and we really acknowledge what we are doing and what we are thinking, that's where the change comes from.
Yep.
You know, Drew Brees just this morning, you know, he apologized.
I'm gonna sip my tea on this one. I'm gonna sip my tea.
You know, yes, exactly. But, you know, I see his comments, and I think that I don't think he is a bad person. Do I agree with him? Absolutely not. Do I think that in his position of power and his platform, he should have ever said that? No. But he came back this morning, and you can say what you will. I don't know him. I don't know his values. You can say what you will about, maybe he got the backlash from his agents, or, you know, it's a political move, or it's a, you know, a PR stunt. But he came back and he said, oh, I missed the mark. This was wrong. I wasn't seeing where it was. You know, I wasn't connecting what should be talked about. I was making my own personal beliefs and my own morals come before a movement that is not talking about your morals. No one said that you, by saying Black Lives Matter or going down on a knee, is not protesting the American flag or the people that have fought for our freedom. You know, it is protesting the fact that not everyone is treated equally. Liberty and justice for all is not a correct statement. And that is what the protest is about. And so when people, I think, take the time to really look at their own actions, we like to talk. We like to talk at people. We like to scream. We like to be right. But what we need to do is be wrong. We need to be quiet and open our ears and listen, right? And I mean, that's where this conversation, this idea came from, of even doing this, is like, I need to take a step back and just be like, let me hear your side. You know, as a performer, I do all of this character research and this development for a character that I'm about to play. Why can't I do that with another human being that is the same as me, but just has different color of skin?
And I think to all your point with that too, I think it deals with the educational system and the foundations that are set up for you from childhood. Going back to Drew, before I continue on with that, I saw his post yesterday, and for me, a lot of things I find comical, because Drew Brees also was kneeling with his team, the New Orleans Saints, and there are photos that have surfaced of that. And so I think his response, and I can't say if someone is truly speaking from their heart. As a Christian, I know I learned about forgiveness, and I mean I'm sure people have forgiven him, but people don't forget. And I think that's something that's very important. Is he has been around Black people a lot of his career, and he should have known what that movement was about and educated himself. Just don't kneel because you want to be in the in crowd for that moment. Because if the majority of his team was kneeling, and I believe the picture that was taken was like when a lot of the team started doing it, don't just do it because you don't want to look bad. Do it because you know what you're doing it for. And then after the fact, when you're like, oh, maybe I didn't agree with that, well, you should have done the research in the beginning.
Right.
And so it deals with knowing how to dive into that research. Like, I'm not a bandwagon person. I will always do my research about something. And
Right.
so I'm glad he came out and said, you know what, I misspoke, because it shows that, hey, you know what, I need to be held accountable here. And
Right.
honestly, I respect him for that. But like I said, I can't say what his heart is. If he's out here and he's apologized, his actions beyond that will show if that apology was genuine.
That is
And I feel like
the apology is the starting point. It is not.
right, right. That's not the end all be all. The apology is the start of a change. So we want to see some more actions after that.
Right.
But back to my point about education, I think that education has been a big form of systemic racism, not empowering non-Black people to know the struggles of Black people and to know what the movements are about. How I look at it is, and to be honest, I've always thought that racism was always a safety like net for a social class system. Because when you look back when the slaves were emancipated and they were free, and now they were able to go out and get an education in certain places, they were able to have their home with 40 acres and a mule. Black people were then able to start building themselves up. But I think what happened was a lot of the racist people realized that not everyone was racist and not everyone felt the same that they did. So I felt that racism was then born into systemic racism as well, because if there were always ways to keep Black people down, and if there was always a race that was on the bottom, someone would be on the top.
Right.
And so I think what started happening from there was when we started getting more people from different backgrounds over, racism was planted in each cultural segment. So you'll always hear about how within even different cultures, like a lot of within the Asian community, they have racism within their community. I mean, it's in every community, even within Black people, you know, not necessarily racism, but like the whole dark skin and light skin thing was a thing born from all of that. So I think from the beginning, the masterminds knew, like, we have to have a way to always be on top. And so by doing so, it was also bled into our educational system. Black History Month is the shortest month of the year, right? And beyond that, you don't hear anything else about Black history. But history was my favorite subject in high school. I took AP European, I took AP World, I took AP American History. Like, I learned everything about America and beyond, but you never really hear about the ugly side of America. Like, you never really hear about what was their first Thanksgiving actually like. How many Native Americans did we murder, rape, burn, whatever? They never want that type of stuff to come out, because the more of that comes out, we truly understand our history and we understand how messed up it was from the beginning. But in order to keep that mentality and lifestyle, they hold those resources back. So when these things do happen, you're confused on the approach to take, because you're like, wait a minute, Black lives matter. What about all lives? You know, kind of like what you said, it's because it's spun in a way so that you're not informed. It's the same mentality back in slavery, when the reason slave owners were able to be more powerful than the slaves was because they were more educated and they made them feel less than. So by removing your resources, even as a white gay male, you didn't have all the knowledge to know how to fight the good fight at the time, because they removed that knowledge. But once everyone knew what time it was, we're like, okay, we don't have time for this anymore.
Right.
So I think that's why, is because a lot of people and a lot of families too, you're put in a position to where you're like, do I want to learn more about this and be outcast if you do have racist or prejudiced relatives or a social circle? Or are you more willing to walk on eggshells, knowing what things are wrong, but you want to keep your lifestyle? That's what it's all about.
Right. And I think also, and this is a great way to like segue into one of my final questions for you is, you know, I've gotten some backlash on social media of, you know, this isn't your fight. Like, who do you think you are? Like, you're doing this for clout, like you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And, you know, and that's fine. That's whoever is saying that, that's their opinion. And I respect it and I hear it and I understand where that comes from. I truly do. But I posted something on Instagram last night where it was, a video of Orlando police chasing protesters before
I
8.
actually saw that video. Yes. Yeah, that was crazy.
This ties in what you were talking about politics too.
Mhm.
Buddy Dyer needs to step up, in my opinion. He is a Democrat. I am. If anyone doesn't know who I am, and you follow me on social media, you can tell that I'm very liberal.
Really? I could not tell. I had no idea.
But you're right. It is not a political thing. There's racism on both sides, and it becomes not even, I'm not calling Buddy Dyer a racist or the police chief a racist or that all cops are racist. It is a system that they are playing into that has racism thread throughout it. And that was from the start of time. That was before they were hired, before they were born. But until someone changes that, until someone of privilege has the power right now to do something about it, nothing is going to be done. So that's where I urge, people to vote, to not just vote for the president every 4 years.
Yeah, you got to vote for everything.
The governor, you have to vote for
your representatives,
your community, your city council. Leadership starts at the top, but it also is a two-way street, right? So you look at the people that are at the bottom. Where was Obama when he started? He wasn't born into the Senate or in Congress, or he wasn't born a politician. He was born a leader that started from the bottom, right? So with that, all wrapping up, I guess my last question to you is, what is the best advice that you can give primarily white people of the white community that want to help? But I mean, I guess this can expand to really anyone that wants to offer help. What is the best advice that you can give them at this current moment right now?
I would say first and foremost, educate yourself. I think understanding where Black Lives Matter started, but also go before that. Like, I've had a lot of my friends reaching out to me, telling me that they're watching all these documentaries, which is great. Like, this is awesome. And it's kind of like what I talked about before. It's that educational piece, because without that educational piece, you're not empowered to really make a change. Like, yeah, you know what the cause is for, but you really need to know the deep rooted stuff. Like, this wasn't all just for, George Floyd. This was for Breonna Taylor, who's rarely getting that recognition. This is for Ahmaud Arbery. This is for Trayvon Martin. This is for that long laundry list, Sandra Bland, even Martin Luther King, Emmett Till. Like, it goes all the way back, and so you have to educate yourself, because Black people and non-white people were force-fed predominantly white history. Like, we didn't get to choose what history we wanted to learn. It was forced to us. And so I would say really start finding out that educational stuff, and then start having those tough conversations. Being Black in America is not a comfortable experience, and you having a conversation with a relative may be uncomfortable, but I would rather you have a conversation than walk on eggshells to my funeral. So please understand that, like, you're gonna have those tough conversations because you need to. And if you have a relative that's racist, I would remove myself from that situation. And I think that's where a lot of people are stuck, is because they benefited from the system, so they don't want to go against the system. There are those kids who live off of mom and dad stuff, who may have a penthouse condo in New York. Great. But your parents are against the Black Lives Matter movement and are calling people everything but their name and are not for the cause, and you don't want to go against them because you don't want to lose your lavish lifestyle. So a lavish lifestyle is on the bottom of a totem pole in comparison to someone's life. Like, we all have the right to live. We all have the right to be here. So I think it started manning up and womaning up enough to have these conversations that we should have been having years ago. And if your parents or anyone gives you pushback, then they are not for you. Because if they are not for this cause, like I said, racism and prejudice can take on any type of diversity situation. The gays have gone through it. And it's funny to me because being gay, I'm like, hey, weren't we just fighting for equal rights like years ago too? Where are y'all at in this movement? If it wasn't for Marsha Johnson and everyone with Stonewall, which was a riot, we would not be here where we are. So who are you to turn up your nose at this whole movement? Educate yourself, because you're ignorant on it. So it's having those tough conversations, because in order to change, you have to go through a time of uncomfort and being outside of your comfort zone. And that's where change really comes from. In addition to that, I would say protest if you feel like that's what you need to do. I would say go beyond that. Donate. sign petitions, maybe get in the law. Like, do you want to run for a seat or do you want to be a politician? Do you want to see some active change? Become a teacher, break that system. There's different ways, like I said from the beginning, that this was implemented. So it's going to take multiple different ways to get rid of it. You know, like I said, racism isn't always in your face. It's in the banks. You know, they don't offer loans to a lot of Black people. A lot of Black people in lower income areas get high interest rates on credit cards because it's predatory. Break that cycle. There are so many different ways to go about this, but I think it starts with education and then turn that into action however you need to turn it into action. What I will say though is this: posting on social media about doing it is great because you have a privilege and you have a platform. But I think people are wise enough to know when people are doing it for clout. So I've seen your post. I don't think you're doing it for clout. But there are people out there that just did the one Blackout Tuesday post and they were done. So if you're going to be out here fighting the good fight, put your money where your mouth is. You shouldn't be afraid to lose a platform. Look at Taylor Swift. I've never been the biggest Taylor Swift fan. I find some of her songs to be cute, but I have a lot of respect for her now, speaking up within these last few years. She understands that human life is more important than someone's lifestyle, than someone's money. Like, a life is lost. Lives have been lost. And so I think you have to be wise enough with that knowledge to stand on your own 2 feet to fight this fight next to your Black brothers and sisters and other people of color or diversity when it becomes their fight. I'm very vocal on a lot of different things. I'll be marching for animal rights. I march for rights for the environment. Like, these are causes that affect all of us. And until we get out of that hamster wheel thinking that it's only because of white versus Black or Latino versus whoever, or however you want to spin it, we need to get out of that hamster wheel because that's the hamster wheel they designed for us. So like I said, start with education, turn it into action, but do not, please, do not touch base with your Black friends. This is the message for all y'all out there. Do not consistently touch base with your Black friends. Be like, I did this today. I signed this petition today. Like, great. You should have done that a long time ago. Like, being a good person, you don't get a pat on the back because you should be a good person in general. So I think there's ways to go about it, but I think what you're doing is a great job. Keep doing it. And like, this show is a great starting point as well. So continue to do that and have these conversations because, like I said, in order for us to grow together and work through this darkness, we have to have these tough conversations because it was born and bred into all of our lives and we have to get it out.
Mr. Goode, I love you, brother. You are a great sunshine, and I'm very, very thankful that you hopped on. I'm learning, I'm digesting everything that you're saying, and you know, the headline, not the headline, but the message that I'm taking away from this is what you just said, is I'd rather you walk on eggshells than walk to my funeral. So thank you for that message. Thank you for hopping on this call with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And, I wish you the best, and I will
you.
Be there along to fight with you until we see some change.
Thank you. Hashtag Black Lives Matter.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Bye.
So there you have it. Thank you so much, Brandon, for being the first person in this Real Chats with Jake series. I cannot thank you enough. I'm just so humbled and grateful that you wanted to have an open dialogue with me about this issue. We will only see change if we be the change, right? So I urge you to go follow Brandon on Instagram and Twitter. Go check out his book on Amazon. That will all be in the description below. Also, if you like, I would love for you to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of the new interviews that I'm about to have. Also, check out my Instagram and my social media in the list below as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's a little bit lengthy, but with this kind of setup, I want it to be open and as raw as possible. So with all of that being said, I just want to remind you to be safe, be kind, and always remember there is nothing to prove, only something to share. I'll see you guys in the next one.